I find this story in the first reading so significant that actually it's I picked it as one of my readings for my funeral visitation. And I wrote it about a little bit in my article in Messenger. I could be a little more personal, I think, here with you all. And I have to be a little bit careful when I say I picked it for my funeral visitation. Yesterday after Mass, someone said to me, "Father, are you having your funeral next week?" And I said, "No, I don't think so. I'm not." She says, "Well, I thought you said you were going to have your funeral." I said something about next week, or just joking. And she said, "Between the sound system and my hearing aid, I didn't hear that one." I told her, I said, "If you get your hearing aid fixed, I'll get the sound system fixed," which we are working on, by the way. The reason I like this reading so much, it seems to me it paints a picture of one idea I have in my mind of relationship between a pastor and his parishioners. And you can extrapolate, of course, but so Amalek comes to wage war against Israel. And notice Moses doesn't, take his sword and go out to battle. He sends Joshua out to battle with Israel's army. A couple years ago, a well-known bishop, someone wrote to him on some social media platform, and this was a time when, statues were being taken down and defaced or whatever, And someone wrote to this bishop and said, "What are the bishops going to do about this?" Or "What are they doing about it?" or something. And he wrote back, "That's the laity's job. You're supposed to sanctify the world according to Vatican II." And some people took that as saying, as kind of this division between laity and clergy. Like, no, that's your job. You guys go do your job, I'm doing my job here. I can't think that he really meant it that way. But when you're answering a question in 2 sentences, it's a little hard to be thorough, He's not wrong in this sense that, we often think of church as what we do here, or around here. But the church's work really, for the most part, is out there. That's what, yes, the church does some things here, for sure. But Cardinal Ratzinger said somewhere, I read in one of his interviews, that the church does 3 things. She worships God, she cares for the poor, and she evangelizes. 2 of those 3 are out there. And it is properly your work, because that's where you are. You're out there, working, playing, whatever you're doing, but you're out there. You see people I would never see. You know people, talk to people I will never talk to, unless you bring them in here. You are many people's first, sometimes only connection with God and His church. And so, but it's not your job in the sense that we're separate, It's really the church's job out there. We have different roles. Your role is out there often. And so Moses sends Israel's army. So his army is out there fighting Amalek. But Moses doesn't say, "I'm going to have a cigar here, let me know when it's over." Right? He says, "While you're fighting, I will be up on the hill with the staff of God in my hand." Remember, this is the staff that Moses struck the rod with which Moses struck the rock to bring water out of it. This is the staff with which he parted the Red Sea. So this is the power of God. And Moses says, while you're out there fighting, I will be invoking God and bringing the power of God to you. And this, among other things, is the pastor's part of this work out there in the world. I pray for you often, and sometimes often it's about what's going on, sickness or illness, or you have problems with your children, whatever, when I know about that stuff. I pray about that. But I pray for you every day so that you will have the power of God as you're out in the world doing what you're supposed to be doing out there as Christians. Notice? Paul was talking to Timothy, of course, but it's also can be for us. Proclaim the word. Be persistent, whether it's convenient or inconvenient. Encourage, teach. The church has the answer to the world's problems, and I don't mean by that you go to the church to find out how to create a good sewer system. The church has the answer to the problems of the world, racism and isolation and hatred and violence, injustice. The world needs what we learn from the church. And so we do this work. It's not just us, right? The staff of God in his hand, and Moses is raising his hands to God. Beginning of Psalm 127, if the Lord does not build the house, in vain do the builders labor. The Lord does not watch over the city, in vain does the watchman keep vigil. So we're not out there just doing whatever we think. We're out there doing God's work. Power of God. And that's Moses and his staff. When Moses gets tired, his hands get tired. And they start to droop. And when Moses' hands droop, the battle goes badly for Israel. And so, Israel, in a sense, then gives Moses some help. And Joshua come up, give him a stone on which to sit, hold up his hands. Pastor gets tired, gets discouraged. I get discouraged, I get tired, I get frustrated. I have my sins to deal with, they pull me down, etc., etc. I try to support you in your work, but I am weak. And so I then in turn need your help and support. And I know I get it. I do get that support. It might be a card or a note or a phone call. It might be food, But mostly I know prayers. Your people tell me that you pray for me. Some of you pray for me every day. And then we get this beautiful circle, I'm supporting you as you're out there, invoking God for you. You have the strength to do what you're supposed to do, the wisdom to say what you're supposed to say. Courage to be a Christian in the world, and then you support me with your prayers and other ways, strengthen me in my work, and suddenly this makes sense. And it's not, that's the lady's job, it's our job. It's just you guys have a particular role, and I have a particular role. And it can feel sometimes like we're separate. And that thought made me think of, and I mentioned it in my article, it made me think of a poem from Robert Frost, by Robert Frost, The Tuft of Flowers. And the narrator in the poem goes out to turn the grass that the mower had mowed for hay, so it'll dry. And he looks for the mower and he doesn't see him. And you can tell he feels some discouragement and separation. And he says to the mower in his apart, yes, this is the way it is. Men work alone, whether they work together or apart. But then he sees this tuft of flowers. This is probably a butterfly bush, the way he describes it. And he realizes the mower it seems like he purposely left that there. He liked those flowers too, and he sees this connection between them. Even though he can't see the mower, he feels connected to him. And it changes his attitude, and he says, yes, I see now. Men work together, whether they work together or apart. And so let's remember that. As part of the church, we have much to do out there. And you're out there without me, so to speak, physically. A lot of what I do physically is without you. But let's not forget this, that when we work at God's work, when we take our part in the church's mission in the world, we work together, whether we are together or apart.